with...
Thank you, Chad Erickson. Thank you for being with us on this Monday edition, November 20th, 2023. Happy birthday to my brother, John. Celebrating his 52nd birthday today. Biggest Bengals fan I know. Oh, tough times to be a Bengals fan, that's for sure. All right, lots to get to from the NFL today. Obviously, recapping Week 11. We'll do that coming up. Sam Yarnell will join us in a few minutes. Bill Bender will be by coming up in about 15. Get some thoughts with him on the week that was in college football. A huge injury for a Florida State quarterback threatens to sort of upset the way this entire football playoff could work out. We'll get into that. Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. Colorado loses again. All of that coming up with Bill Bender from the Sporting News in a few minutes. Odds and ends. I actually watched my first ever F1 race from start to finish. I managed to survive it on Friday night. My God, it kept me up so late, or Saturday night. It kept me up so late. I'm sitting here trying to figure out who the hell in the United States is watching this. It's late where I am, and I'm on the West Coast. Anyway, we'll get into that coming up because there is some potential legal issues coming for F1 as a result of the way things went. But we started out in the NFL, and look, I got to say this. I've watched this Jets quarterback situation the same way all of you have. With Aaron Rodgers getting hurt, first series, first game against Buffalo. And we came all the way back full circle last night where the Jets are playing the Bills for the second time this season. And anybody watching the game, it's now plain to see. Zach Wilson is not the answer. Zach Wilson was never the answer for the Jets at the quarterback position. And it makes you wonder, how could a team get it so terribly wrong time after time at the quarterback position? How could a team get it so wrong in their evaluation? And then you're watching Zach Wilson last night, and you're watching the Pastronaut, for Minnesota playing against Denver, and Dobbs doing what he's been doing. And you start to ask yourself a question. Why are we here? Why are we talking about a Jets team that's starting a guy at Zach Wilson who is clearly overmatched when it comes to playing the position? And then I got to thinking last night. There was this story that popped, I don't know, a week or two ago in the New York sports media, made its way around nationally. And that story was that Aaron Rodgers put the kibosh on this team signing Carson Wentz. Now, some people might say, well, it's because Carson Wentz ain't a great locker room guy, or Carson Wentz isn't this, or Carson Wentz isn't that. And then I watched Joe Flacco go to Baltimore to play for a team that is similar to the Jets in that, yeah, they don't have a ton of offensive weapons, but they have a great defense that they know is going to keep them in games. So just with an average to above average quarterback, they feel like they're going to have a chance every week. And I sit here and wonder, why did the Jets do this? Why did they basically punt on the season with Zach Wilson as their starting quarterback? And then it came to me last night. I have nothing to base this on. I have no inside reporting on it. But I suspect we're going to find out one day sooner rather than later that Aaron Rodgers was the reason they didn't punt on Zach Wilson. That Aaron Rodgers was the reason they would never go and get another quarterback. Because if another quarterback came in and was successful, if another quarterback came in and led this team to 10 wins or 11 wins, then you'd have a quarterback controversy. Then they'd say, well, any average to above average quarterback could do it. And Aaron Rodgers wouldn't let that happen because Aaron Rodgers' ego would never allow that to happen. Aaron Rodgers is the reason we are where we are today. Make no mistake about it. Aaron Rodgers is the reason there was no suitable backup quarterback for this team because Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to have any hint of competition when it came to trying to revitalize the Jets and fix what's been wrong for decades upon decades. Aaron Rodgers is the cause of all of this when all is said and done. And the Jets' willingness, needing to capitulate to his every want and need. And what do you get? A team that scored 1 touchdown over the last 3 games. An embarrassing display of NFL football. And it's all because the Jets gave in to everything Aaron Rodgers asked them to do. With that, we say hello to our friend Sam Yarnell, who is with us today on the show. We'll get into the Week 11 storyline. Sam, what do you have to think about the whole Aaron Rodgers situation and the Jets quarterback situation?
I completely agree with you, Jason. And I mean, going back to before the season started, this is something that I was telling listeners of the show. I thought that the Aaron Rodgers thing wasn't going to work out before he tore his Achilles. And he's handcuffed that organization. And quite frankly, he's handcuffed. Well, Robert Saleh has allowed him to be handcuffed by Aaron Rodgers, but there needs to be a serious conversation had about that coach up in New York and whether or not he should be on the hot seat. Before the season started, I said on this very program, I thought he was going to be one of the sneaky candidates for a hot seat this season, and he may be fired before the season's out. I think he probably will be at this rate.
I'm not convinced that they're going to get rid of him, because if it was an organization-wide decision, Joe Douglas up above, if it was an organizational decision to give in to the wants and needs of massaging and stroking Aaron Rodgers' ego and not going and getting a Gardner Minshew in the offseason or making a deal before the trade deadline, if that was the case, remember, they almost went and they tried to get Devontae Adams before the trade deadline. They tried to make that deal, but they didn't try to make a deal for a quarterback. They didn't try to make a deal for Ryan Tannehill. They didn't try to make a deal for Joshua Dobbs, who was clearly available for, a 6th-round pick? They didn't try to do anything, but they were still trying to improve the team. So to me, it was an organizational-wide decision to not go and get a quarterback. So I don't know how you could then say it's Robert Saleh's fault that he couldn't win with Zach Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett, who could not figure out a way to make whatever skills this guy have viable on an NFL field. I don't know how you blame that on Robert Saleh. I don't think it's his fault.
I think that you blame on Robert Saleh the fact that this team should have been able to win with Zach Wilson. We said it, as much as we're going to sit here and say that the quarterback play in New York is incompetent, which it is. Zach Wilson's terrible. I agree. The defense has not given the offense any opportunities. They haven't been playing complementary football to any degree. That secondary has been a little banged up throughout the season, sure, but they've been absolutely abysmal. They're like Commanders level letdown. I think that the way that Saleh has coached the team this year, he knew very early on, obviously, 4 snaps into week 1, the adversity and the challenge he was going to have to face, and could have very well planned to face it or planned against it, and he didn't do anything. It's just hard for me to look at that organization right now and look at that coaching staff and see how they don't clean house, how they don't get rid of just everybody, because it's been such a colossal letdown on both sides of the ball. And let's not let Zach Wilson be an excuse for that defense, because that defense should have kept them in every game that they've lost, and they haven't been able to. The defense has been a huge letdown this season, and also the defense hasn't gotten enough turnovers to give Zach Wilson a short field to try and get some offensive momentum. So as much as it is Zach Wilson playing an incompetent quarterback, I don't think if they had Josh Dobbs or if they had Baker Mayfield or if they went and traded for a low value experienced guy, I don't think they're in much different of a situation. The defense has let them down all year, and they've been out coached in multiple games.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say to that is if your defense is on the field literally the entire game, because you can't even flip field position so many times. If your defense is on the field all the time, eventually it's just going to run out of gas. And look, there's plenty of blame to go around ultimately, but I don't think Robert Saleh is going to lose his job. They're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Now, if you tell me Jim Harbaugh calls Woody Johnson and says, I want to come and coach the Jets next year, then we might have a conversation. But short of something big like that, who are the Jets going to get? Who are the Jets going to get?
Staley.
No, stop it. You're not getting Brandon. You don't want Brandon Staley. Why would you want Brandon Staley? He's going to be such damaged goods By the time this thing is over in Los Angeles with the Chargers, yeah, going to get Brandon Staley. The only guy that I could see them canning Saleh to go and get would be Harbaugh. Or even something as crazy as like Deion Sanders. But I don't even think the Jets would do that. I think they're smart. I think they're smarter than that. I can see the Raiders doing something splashy and crazy like Deion. I can't see the Jets doing something like that. I think the Jets would actually probably shy away from something like that. But anyway, that's a thought on the Jets and what's taking place with that organization. I think Aaron Rodgers and sort of capitulating to his ego has a lot to do with why they are where they are right now. Speaking of Brandon Staley, what a disaster with the Chargers. My God. I mean, and then he gets mad at the media yesterday, snaps off on them. He's probably lost just about everything at this point. There's two guys clearly on the hot seat right now. Ron Rivera for losing both games to the Giants this season. And now it has to be Brandon Staley that joins him on that equally hot seat when you consider both of the disappointments those teams have been.
I told you to take the Packers. We were heavily invested in the Packers. Knew the Chargers were going to charger. It's literally the epitome of why they have a verb named after them now. Brandon Staley had a wonderfully Brandon Staley game. Justin Herbert has been overrated since his second in the league. I don't want to hear about him not having good weapons around him. Oh my God, he's got Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler.
Keenan Allen's dropping balls, hitting him in the chest on the goal line. He threw the pass late in that game that should have won the game for the Chargers, and it was dropped by another rookie receiver. I'm not passing this off on Justin Herbert. Stop it.
No, I'm sorry.
Stop!
Keenan Allen is an all-pro level wide receiver. Quentin Johnston was in consideration for the Heisman Trophy until he got injured his last year at TCU last year. He was one of the more highly touted wide receivers in this draft. He's better than Zay Flowers, quite frankly, talent-wise. He just doesn't have a good quarterback throwing him the ball, and he's in a terrible offensive system. At the end of the day, when you have struggles like that, they have to fall on the shoulders of the quarterback.
No, they don't. Not if you're watching these games.
They do. And no matter if you are watching these games, you see it. He's going through the wrong reads. He's in an offense that is way too complicated for him to handle. Justin Herbert is the exact same player that he was coming out of Oregon. He can succeed in one offensive system. And it's very apparent that the Chargers are unwilling to switch their system around to try and get him, to try and have it be more suitable to him, which is fine. That's how they want to run their organization. But at the end of the day, it's leading to the downfall of Justin Herbert. And it's, hindered and clipped his wings over the course of the last 3 years.
I think Brandon Staley's going to be the fall guy there. Justin Herbert is an elite quarterback. He is an elite. I'm
not saying they're going to cut him or even bench him. I'm just saying we need to be honest with ourselves. He has not been a good quarterback his entire career in the NFL.
I disagree.
He hasn't.
I completely disagree with that.
What numbers have shown that he has been a good quarterback any season he's been in the NFL?
Not everything.
Has he ever finished as a top 5 quarterback in any category?
Well, first of all, the list of who's at the top, if you're talking about the top 5, is he a top 10 quarterback?
He could contend for like 8, 9.
He's a top 10 quarterback. In a league with a lot of good quarterbacks, he's a top 10 quarterback. I mean, and frankly, like I said, if you watch that game yesterday, they didn't lose because of Justin Herbert. They lost because Keenan Allen dropped one that hit him dead in between the numbers, and Johnson drops one late in the game that he's got to come up with as well. Otherwise, the Chargers win that game yesterday. I mean, it's as simple as that. But Brandon Staley is certainly on the hot seat. How is Ron Rivera? We're taping this show at 9:21 a.m. Pacific on Monday morning. How is Ron Rivera not out of a job yet? Somebody's got to tell me what on earth the Commanders are doing after losing to the Giants twice this weekend, twice this season. How on earth is Ron Rivera still employed? I don't understand.
I mean, they might as well have lost to the Giants twice this weekend, Jason. That game was awful. That game was. I cannot believe I put real American money on the Washington Commanders to win that football game. What a loser I am!
Yeah,
My
I agree.
goodness,
I agree.
That was. Just
I can't believe
abysmal.
I put it on the under and it went way over.
Oh well. Listen, every smart bet you had in that game lost, no matter what. Tommy DeVito under 171 passing yards, he throws for like 300. Tommy DeVito less than half a touchdown, he throws for 2.
That was blown up quick.
It was a horrible game for Ron Rivera. I think that there's an element of this in a way that Ron Rivera may come away at least this week with his job is. You could blame a lot of that on the defense, which has been bad this year for sure, but specifically missing their talents that they traded away, right? It was ever apparent in this game that Montez Sweat was not on that defensive line. And you saw DeVito get outside the pocket. You saw Saquon Barkley run left and right. It was good to see the Giants offense we know that Brian Daboll can still run a capable offense. It was good to see the Giants offense kind of perform up to that level, but the Commanders defense could get no contain any which way on the Giants offense yesterday. And it's tough, but
lost though. The season's lost if you're the Giants.
Right.
Lose the game. Just if you're gonna suck, then suck badly. Don't finish the season 5-12. Don't finish the season 6-11. Don't do it. Why are you going to do that to your fans? If you're going to make them suffer through a bad season, make them suffer and make it matter. Make it worth something. And the Giants, clearly not a team that's used to tanking. Clearly not a team that knows how to tank. Is figuring out a way to screw up a ham sandwich.
Well, they tanked when they got the Saquon Barkley pick, but they're botching this, man. They're gonna end up with like the 6th pick, the 7th pick, and it's just gonna be because this is not a draft class where the 6th or 7th pick is really gonna make a difference.
Well, there's talk 5 or 6 quarterbacks could go in the first round.
Right. So. And if you're going to replace Daniel Jones, who you just paid $1 zillion to, sure. But outside of that, they're probably realistically going to trade back, I would think, unless they get a top 3 pick and can get Marvin Harrison Jr., because Marvin Harrison Jr. is awesome. And I will stand by the fact that he is going to be the best player in this draft class. Or my opinion, I should say. But the Giants, they are writing the script for a pick between 5 and 8 that is just kind of, I'm a Bills fan. We saw this for a decade. This is exactly what the Bills did. You got to pick between 5 and 8. You don't know what you do with it. You talk about trading it until draft day. Then you pick a meaningless offensive lineman or middle linebacker who may turn out to be something someday, but probably won't. 3 years later, you're in the same spot. This is a dangerous path that the Giants are starting down, Jason. Yeah. They got to get this figured out fast.
Nice bounce back week for Jacksonville. Did what we thought they would do against Tennessee. We told you to take them. I think it was -7. They handled their business there. Miami against a tough Vegas defense. And again, you see this offense kind of meandering, kind of struggling against a really good top 7, top 8 defense in Las Vegas. Yes, they get the win, but it does leave you kind of scratching your head about what this team's going to look like against elite defenses come the postseason. Still a win for Miami nonetheless. Cleveland figures out a way to win this week. They beat Pittsburgh 13-10 with DTR at quarterback. Joe Flacco has been signed to the practice squad today, so he is obviously a part of the mix there. I don't know if they're going to ride this out for another week or 2 with DTR, wait until he has some troubles, and then maybe at that point you start looking at Flacco as an option. If not, obviously P.J. Walker. Green Bay got the win. We talked about the Chargers faltering yesterday, 23-20. San Francisco, good win for them. Beat the Buccaneers 27-14. The Rams got a win in a weird game. Geno Smith hurts his elbow. You think he's done for the day. Then he comes back in on the final drive. Rams get the win 17-16. We'll have to see what's going on with Geno. I think they said it was a biceps injury or triceps injury that he wound up suffering. Detroit game of the day. We didn't even get to talk about it. But they beat Chicago 31-26 on a day where they did not have their best stuff. And now we've seen 2 or 3 weeks this season where the Lions have not played their best football, but still find ways to win games. And that's something that's the mark of a really good football team. And Detroit manages to do that. And Justin Fields, again, gave you some plays yesterday that make you wonder, do we want to stick with this for another year? Do we want to go after Caleb Williams if we have the top pick in the draft? By the way, the Bears get it. If they're going to suck, they're going to suck all the way and wind up with that top pick in the draft. Let's see. What else did I leave out? Denver winning last night, 21-20. Good win for the Broncos, who continue to sort of, resurrect this season. Look, if we were going to crush them when they gave up 70 to the Dolphins, you got to talk about the fact this team now is largely built around defense, which is crazy to think about for a team that got slaughtered in Miami the way it did earlier this season. And again, in a big spot, late in the game, Russell Wilson made the plays when it mattered. Courtland Sutton made a fantastic catch, actually made 2 fantastic catches on that game-winning drive for the Broncos, who continue to keep their season. And look, they're right there. If you're talking about an AFC wildcard spot, they're right there now at 5-5. Certainly in the mix. Minnesota drops to 6-5, obviously still alive as it relates to the NFC for a wild card spot. Final thoughts on Week 11, and then we'll come back and get you for the Monday Night Football preview.
Broncos are second in the AFC West. Watch out, Kansas City. Here comes Denver. Miami is teetering. That we called them frauds already after their last loss to a good team, but they may just be a bad team at this point.
We being you.
Correct. The royal we, if you will. My big concerns in Miami. Jason said Vegas is a good defense. They're not a good team. It doesn't matter how good one side of the ball or the other side is. They are a bad team under an interim head coach. Miami needed to win that game by 2 touchdowns at least, and they struggled to win it there at the end. Other than that, the Lions probably have the best offense in the NFL, realistically. An off day and they put up 31 points. That team is capable of doing just about anything offensively. Love the Detroit Lions this year. That's just about it for me. Kind of a boring week. Also, never going to stop betting on the Pasternaut cover.
That is Sam Yarnell. He did cover. He did make a couple of throws in that game that give you pause, though, when you start thinking about their prospect. Yeah, you love his athleticism. I agree. But decision-making, not necessarily his best suit right now. And it does give you a little cause for concern. Look, you got what you got for Kevin O'Connell. Your team started out 0-3. It was a miserable start to the year. You've managed to put yourself in a position to still potentially make the postseason. When we return, we got to get into some college football. It was a rough weekend if you're a Florida State fan. We'll get into that. Also, some thoughts on what's going on with Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. I have been saying for weeks I think he's gone. Bill has disagreed with me on this. Has he changed his opinion any? We'll get to that as well as the Sports Wrap continues on this Monday. The Sports Wrap continues on this Monday. Sam Yarnell will rejoin us coming up in about 15 minutes. Do the Monday Night Football preview with Kansas City and Philadelphia tonight. Odds and ends to wrap things up. But let's talk some college football. Our good friend Bill Bender is here from the Sporting News to hang out with us on this glorious Monday. All right, Bill. The loss for Florida State at quarterback is enormous. If you are the selection committee, the thing that kind of comes to mind for me, this might have been, 25 years ago. Kenyon Martin goes down for Cincinnati just before the NCAA tournament. Cincinnati still gets a 1 seed, and everybody's like, "Why? How did you do that? They're not the same team." Is that a similar situation here for Florida State in trying to figure out what they are going forward?
Kenyon Martin being an Ohio kid, that's one we all remember where we were when it happened. And we all knew at the time rather Florida, that, hey, they're probably not going to win it now. I mean, they just lost the best player in the country. Michigan State ends up winning. And ironically, Cincinnati lost to a pretty good Tulsa team led by Bill Self. Then again, being an Ohio kid, you know the tale of JT Barrett breaking his ankle against Michigan. Cardale Jones steps in, leads a Cinderella national championship run. I think this could be somewhere in between, Jason. I like Florida State to win the next couple weeks, and then they're going to force the committee to do something that they probably don't want to do and put them in the playoff where they're probably going to play Georgia.
None of us. Yeah, and we all know how that story probably ends. As much as we want to sit here and try and draw up some fairy tale for Florida State, where the backup quarterback comes in and sort of saves the day. What do we even know about him?
Well, yeah, he stepped in. Tate stepped in last week. I mean, they were obviously playing North Alabama. We all had to scramble and find the CW on our TV. I have not watched. Bobby Carpenter, I do a show with him in the morning. He joked about not watching that since Dawson's Creek, and I was like, "You watched Dawson's Creek?" So we had some fun with that. But yeah, the difference between this and that Ohio State team is that Ohio State team was flush with NFL talent everywhere. Joey Bosa and Zeke Elliott, and Cardale changed the way that they played a little bit. I think for Florida State, he changes the way the other way, where they're probably going to rein him in, as opposed to Ohio State let Cardale go and throw the ball down the field a little bit.
Yeah, and I feel for Florida State in this spot. I really do, because it's sitting there right in front of you. You have a great season, and this is what happens. It's been, look, I mean, we can talk about it ad nauseum with football in general. You saw what happened in the NFL this season and all the quarterbacks that have gone down. It feels like an epidemic all around football.
It really does, and you want these guys to stay healthy. You want the best players to be on the field. I mean, for Georgia, it's been a little bit of getting healthy with Brock Bowers. For Michigan, they lost Roman Wilson last weekend. We'll see if he plays. For Ohio State, it was the return of Travion Henderson. So injuries, while the NFL, it's been an epidemic in the NFL, like you said. College, we've been lucky. We've kept a lot of these guys on the field that are going to decide these playoff fates, Oregon, Washington, same deal. We're barreling toward this potential rematch between the Ducks and the Huskies. And as long as Michael Penix and Bo Nix are on the field, that one's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it certainly is. Talk a little bit about Michigan, obviously, the win this weekend. They had to sweat it out at Maryland, 2-0 without Jim Harbaugh. See, they don't even need Jim Harbaugh.
They do, though. They're playing way too conservative. They can't play like that this weekend. 91 running plays, 31 rush or pass plays the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think they've taken the ball out of JJ's hands a little too much. And maybe that's Sharon knowing what he has, but I mean, they played with fire last weekend against Maryland. They didn't look great in the second half. They had a couple injuries, like I said. Maryland's tempo bothered them a little bit, and I'm sure Ohio State saw all of that. Now, I'll qualify this with this. The second Michigan was done with Maryland and the second Ohio State was done with Minnesota, nothing in those games mattered. It's about this week and how they prepare for each other, and it's going to be a classic. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, as you handicap it, who do you like?
I'm going back and forth. I hate waffling, but last night I still think Michigan at home. That there's something to be said for that. But this Ohio State team's really balanced right now, and since Travion Henderson returned, pretty much a 50-50 balance between run and pass. Their defense hasn't allowed more than 17 points per game. The tough part with picking a game like this is I pretty much think 21-17 either way, one of those instant classics like they played in 2016. And all the buildup will be fun this week. We'll see if another Michigan coach gets fired or resigns. But when they get on the field, I think both of these teams are going to get after it. And one or two turnovers really makes the difference. So I'm picking Ohio State with the understanding that it could just as easily go the other way.
Give me a sense on Michigan right now, and obviously what's taking place with Jim Harbaugh. A lot of development since we last spoke about this, with them dropping the appeal of the 3-game suspension and all the potential legal activity around that. Now, you hear Bruce Feldman out there this weekend saying he thinks there could be a lengthy suspension for Harbaugh for next season. Again, it all adds up to me to him leaving. That this is it, man. Enjoy this run for Michigan with Jim Harbaugh, because it's about to end.
I think 3 weeks ago I would have said no, but I'm starting to think you're right. And I made the joke to one of my friends. I said, yeah, he'll be on the sideline this weekend in a Raiders jacket. Something like that. And it wouldn't put it past him to say, okay, I'll take the Raiders job. And, just so he can be on the sideline. It is the college football version of Watergate. And I wasn't alive then, but I've studied it enough to know that there's enough details coming out each time, slowly, like a faucet. And you wonder when that smoking gun comes out on Jim Harbaugh. And let me be clear. There's nothing reported that direct links him to it, but we all have two eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. You can believe your lying eyes. I have to wonder ultimately, if it is the Raiders or if it's the Bears and all of that stuff. But like I said, I got the sense, and I know you said his press conferences are always a little drab and always a little, I'm Eeyore, that it's always has a little bit of that feel to it. But at the end of the day, he looks like a guy to me who's just fed up with it all, and he'll finish his career in the NFL. How badly has this tailspin for Colorado here over the last, several weeks? The injuries, the offensive line, all of this stuff. How much has it damaged their ability in terms of recruiting what they need to sort of fix what's wrong here?
So what you're telling me is we had a 1-month fad where everybody got on a bandwagon.
Oh my God, it's nuts.
And then everybody's getting off the bandwagon now that fad has gone out of style. I mean, I grew up with MC Hammer Pants and Furbies and those kind of things. So I'm making jokes, but they're not great jokes. But Deion, there has to be some substance in the future, and the substance comes on the trenches. They don't have an offensive line. They don't have a defensive line. They got punked by Washington State. When you talk as much trash as they did, and Deion knows this from his playing days, then you have to be prepared for it coming back on you if you don't win. And that's what's happening now. I mean, the pile on isn't as significant as I thought it might be, but I remember at the beginning of the season saying, hey, this team will probably win 4 games, 4 or 5. And that's a win in some ways, but it's almost like not a win the way this season's closing with them getting hammered each week.
It's amazing. What do you make of Cam Rising coming back for a 7th season at Utah?
I mean, this is the world we live in, right? Where we got these guys playing forever. Frank Harris, there's a guy, Frank Harris this weekend has a chance to get UTSA to the American Athletic Conference Championship in his 7th season. So, I don't know how much longer that's going to happen, but, there's a lot of 25-year-old guys, 26-year-old guys playing college football right now. But that's good for Cam Rising to be able to get one more opportunity. Mixed feelings on that, though, that they if it takes 7 seasons, at some point you got to take it to the next level. How
many bouquets of roses are the folks at the NCAA in Indianapolis sending Appalachian State's way for sort of taking them off the hook a little bit this weekend?
Yeah, for sure. And James Madison could still obviously go to a bowl game if the requirements, and I think they should. But, the fact that they don't have to take them to a New Year's Day Six Bowl, which will probably go to the American Athletic Conference champion anyway. App's the original FCS buster, man. They just find ways to ruin your life, and they continue to do that. They did that to the Dukes. That was a fun game. Also a fun moment for James Madison to be able to have the game day spotlight.
Oh, my God. It was incredible between Pat McAfee show being there and having the fun they did. And boy, did they have fun. And then game day being there. Yeah, it was outstanding. Bill Bender, always appreciate it, my friend. Does a great job. The Sporting News. Check out his work there. Good to catch up with you, my friend. We'll do it again soon.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me on.
Bill Bender hanging out with us on the show. All right, stick around. We're coming back. We got a lot more to do on this Monday edition of the Sports Wrap. We'll be joined by Sam Yarnell again. A Monday Night Football preview. Who do we like to win the game? Who do we like from a betting standpoint? It's all next on the Sports Wrap. Welcome back to this Monday edition of the show, this November 20th, 2023. The Monday Night Football game we have all been waiting for is here. Rematch of last year's Super Bowl. Philadelphia, the Eagles, heading to Kansas City to take on Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift, and the Kansas City Chiefs. Sam Yarnell rejoins us after our conversation with Bill Bender, talking college football with him. All right, Sam, who needs it more tonight?
Who needs it more? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, I've stumped you. I've stumped the prince. I think it's
I think the Chiefs need it more.
Isn't that crazy?
Yep.
Isn't that crazy? The team that won the Super Bowl last year. I think it's Kansas City that needs it more tonight. On their home field, opening night, the loss to Detroit, granted without Travis Kelce. I think this is a game the Chiefs have to have. If the Eagles go in there tonight and lose 27-24 or 24-21, okay. People are going to say, and there's already a lot of people that are sort of lukewarm on the Eagles in terms of whether or not they're playing as well as they could be playing, that they've sort of, meandered their way through the season, despite the fact they have this great record, that they haven't necessarily played their best football yet. But I still think Kansas City needs it more when you talk about, who they've played this year, some of the things that have happened along the way, the offensive struggles that this team has had. I agree with you. I think Kansas City needs it more.
So with a loss tonight, it's a 2-game lead in the AFC West, having lost to the team in second place. I'm just saying. I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination Kansas City is going to lose the division, but a 3-game lead with 6 weeks to go, 6 games to go, is a hell of a lot different than a 2-game lead with 6 games to go, and one of those games being a head-to-head. This is a huge game for Kansas City. And I think they're going to blow the Eagles out.
I actually agree with you.
I think Chiefs minus 2.5 is free money.
By the way, I don't know if I'd say blowout, but I definitely think they're going to cover.
Yeah,
I definitely think they're going to cover. I still think fourth quarter it's going to be a game. The game comes down to an onside kick. It'll be a 10-point game. You get a late field goal, onside kick, that sort of thing. But I think Kansas City's going to make a statement tonight. 2.5 is the line. Little juice if you want Kansas City, minus 115. Philadelphia, minus 105. 118 to the Eagles, minus 138 to the Chiefs, and the total is 45.5. I am leaning towards the under.
I've heard everyone say that about this game with the under. I'm actually going to go opposite of that. I think we get points in this one. I think it turns into a little bit of a gong show late. I think we're looking at like a 41-24, 41-31 kind of game. I think we get a lot of points in this one.
That means, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you take my advice and take the under. By the way, 3-1 yesterday in Page versus the Prince. 3-1. Back on track, baby.
I was the hook in the Texans-Cardinals game away from also being 3-1. It was 2-2.
The hook. The dreaded hook.
That's the second time this season, I would just like to say, the second time this season I have lost by the hook, picking the Texans with the spread to win a game.
We didn't even talk about Houston. We didn't even get into the Texans yesterday. And CJ Stroud after the game actually said something really interesting that caught my attention. They were asking him, "Hey, is this sort of game where you had some struggles? Are you gonna kind of rein it in a little bit?" And he's like, "Nope, I'm out there. I'm swinging for the fences every single time." Sounds great now, and I think that's wonderful for this team that's on this sort of magical ride this year that wasn't expected to do anything. That's well eclipsed any expectations that people had set for them. Even the biggest of Texans fans couldn't have dreamed this big that this team would be as good as it's been. With that said, at some point, somebody's going to have to get to CJ Stroud and be able to say, hey, you do have to rein it back a little bit.
You're right, but I don't think that point is anytime in the near future.
I agree.
Just because of, like you said, who the Texans are. And that's why I think the Texans, even compared to the Carolina Panthers, were such a great place for such a talented young quarterback to go. Because even, and this was you kind of saw this yesterday, Kyler Murray did not have a bad game, but that Houston Texans DeMeco Ryans defense stepped up when they needed to, and they made plays when they needed to. And that's what's so great about this Houston team. I talk about complimentary football a lot on the show because I truly am a subscriber to that wins football games in the NFL, and the Texans play great complimentary football. Their defense helps the offense constantly, and it makes CJ Stroud's job a lot easier, which is so much more incremental to his success in his rookie year.
No, he's had a fantastic season. And they keep talking about him in the context of being an MVP candidate, and he should certainly be in that conversation. Back to the Monday Night Football game. Any touchdown scorer tonight? Travis Kelce, -125. A.J. Brown, +120. Jalen Hurts, +120. Pacheco, +120. DeAndre Swift, +150. Rashee Rice, +200. Who do you like?
It's got to be Hurts +120. It's system play, right? The Eagles are playing in a game where they're going to need points. You bet Jalen Hurts to score a touchdown because odds are they get within the 2-yard line at some point and just push him in. And if they don't, you always get a chance, especially against this Chiefs secondary. You'll always have a chance at scrambles and the Chiefs pass rush for that matter. I like them getting home to the quarterback and Hurts having to scramble out in the red zone. Give me Jalen Hurts to score an anytime touchdown.
Passing yardage. Mahomes, 284.5. Jalen Hurts, 233.5. I think this is one of those statement games for Mahomes where I think they're going to throw it around a bit. I think they're going to want to show that this offense is not as bad as people have made it out to be. It has been much maligned this year, much like LeBron last night, by the way, who had 37, I think, in a Lakers win in his 22nd season in the league and continues to do amazing things, and said he had to remind some people last night about who he is. I think Patrick Mahomes tonight going to remind some people about who he is. I like over 284.5.
I'm actually going to go contrarian. I like the under. I think that the Chiefs win this game, but I think that they get it done on the ground a lot in this one. I would look at Pacheco's props. I also think we have some trickery somewhere in this game.
48.5, by the way, for Pacheco for rushing yards. 48.5.
Give me the over on that all day. What I would actually venture probably as the most safe bet is I would go Pacheco rushing plus receiving yards. That's a prop that I always like to look at when you have these kind of athletic backs who are always threats out of the backfield and quarterbacks that love to check it down into the flat. And that's 68.5 for Isaiah Pacheco. So I'm going to take that. Lock me in for Isaiah Pacheco over 68.5 rushing plus receiving yards. And I'm staying away from the quarterback props. I think at the end of the day, I think this game, I do think it goes over, but I think that the offense of the Chiefs is too volatile to put money on Patrick Mahomes. The number on Hurts is pretty low, but I don't know if the Eagles offense is going to be able to get very much done.
So your final score prediction is?
41-34. Chiefs.
41-34 Chiefs. I'll go 24-20. I'll go 24-20. We've had so many unders in primetime games.
You're right.
That to me, it feels like a safe bet. It feels like the safe way to go is 24-20. Yes?
I will just say on that system, if we go on the all these primetime on, what would be the over that cashes in primetime? It would be the Super Bowl rematch. It would be the league scripting this one to be the best game in the world because everyone's going to tune in and they want to put a great product on the field for once. I love the over. I love the over.
It's funny.
You know what? I'm going to go double unit over.
Wow. Funny, the last time these two teams played, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman did the call. They play again tonight. Troy Aikman and Joe Buck will be on the call, even though it's on a completely different network.
I take it back. Single unit over.
Oh, he changed his mind. He's already vacillating. He's already waffling. He's hedging. All right, Sam. We'll see how it all works out. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hopefully we're counting stacks, Jason.
Hopefully we are counting stacks. What was your record, by the way, for Page versus the Prince this week? Because you didn't
2-2.
Okay,
I was the hook on the Texans game away from being 3-1.
I was 3-1. You were 2-2. Back to the way it is supposed to be. We're coming back with odds and ends. We'll wrap things up on this Monday edition of the Sports Wrap. Don't go anywhere. Getting set to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. Only on Monday and Tuesday this week. The podcast of Oddcast will be off on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for the holiday. Hope you enjoy the holidays with you and your significant others. Stay safe. If you don't have to travel, don't. It's just brutal from a travel perspective. We're going to San Diego for the weekend, and I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, even what that 2-hour drive or 2.5-hour drive to San Diego is going to be like when we go Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We'll see how it all goes, though. Going to be a lot of football to watch, obviously, on Thanksgiving, and then the Black Friday football as well. We'll get into all of that tomorrow on the show since it is our final show of the week. All right, let's finish it up with some odds and ends. I watched my first F1 race ever on Saturday night. I stayed up late to watch the F1 race that took place in Las Vegas. And I got to say, had it not been super late at night, I might have been a little bit more into it, but it was fun to watch. You know, it's 50 laps, so the time investment isn't terribly long. And you have a great story in Max Verstappen, who continues to be not just one of the best in what he does, but the best in anybody in any sport, bar none, ever, perhaps. I mean, he is having a historic season. He won again on Saturday night. And, I mean, what can you say? I mean, you could talk about the money that Red Bull Racing has. You could talk about the little rub that he had at the beginning of the race, or maybe he should have been penalized harder. All of these things that are way beyond my pay grade, by the way. I'm not an auto racing guy. I bring on people like Jerry Bonkowski or Tito Patino to come on the show and talk about those things. It's not my specialty. But what I know is that guy is hands down, one of the best in the world at what he does. You could see it watching that race. You were seeing that, able to watch that race on Saturday night and obviously get a taste for what that is all about. All right, move away from that for a second. I want to finish the show with Angel Reese. You might remember her last year for her duel with Caitlin Clark. The two of them going toe-to-toe in the national championship game, won by LSU, Kim Mulkey's team, doing something that hadn't been done at that school in forever, and, you know, having a fantastic run for Mulkey to be able to win a national championship with that team. But Angel Reese was the star of that team. Angel Reese with the "you can't see me." Well, right now we can't see you because you're not playing. And Angel Reese is somebody that loved the spotlight when it shone brightly upon her after that championship game. She embraced being the role of the villain. all the stuff she said at the press conference, everything that she has said since then. Oh, I don't want to go to the White House because they wanted to invite Iowa. All of that stuff. She loved playing the villain. She loved playing the celebrity, swimsuit photos, paparazzi chasing her around. Everybody loved Angel Reese. And Angel Reese loved everybody. She couldn't find cameras fast enough. She couldn't find social media fast enough. Well, now all of a sudden, there's something going on with Angel Reese. She was benched in the second half of a win over, I believe it was Kent State. And everybody's asking, where's Angel Reese? When are we going to see her play again? And Angel Reese has been quiet about it. And even Kim Mulkey, who's never quiet about anything, has been quiet about it. And now Angel Reese puts out a statement on social media and says, don't believe everything you read. That's it? That's all you're going to give us? I mean, you love being the spotlight. You love being the star. You love having all the lights shine upon you. But now Angel Reese doesn't want the attention. She doesn't want all that spotlight. And there's a lot of rumors going around about why she is missing games or why she could be missing games. I'm not going to get into any of those here. If you want to go online and read about them, you can go online and read about them. But it's interesting. She wants to be selectively a star. She wants to be a star when it's convenient for her. She wants to be a star when she's playing really well. But when she's not playing really well, or she's drawn the ire of her head coach, or she's in some sort of trouble that's allowing her not to play, well, now all of a sudden it's don't believe everything you read. When before it was, hey, this is who I am. Can't have it both ways. And I don't care if it sounds like I'm being the bad guy here for going after a student athlete. Let's be honest. None of these athletes anymore at the highest levels of college sports are simply student athletes. But Angel Reese wants it both ways. She wants to get all the coverage and all the flowers thrown her way when she's the big star for the national championship women's basketball team. But she doesn't want all that attention. She don't want all that smoke when it's not going so well for her in LSU. Can't have it both ways. It's going to wrap it up for this Monday edition of the show. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate you listening. We'll see you back here on Tuesday. Monday Night Football recap. I'm sure some guest will be on the show to talk about something. Just have to figure out who it is. For Bill Bender, who we appreciate jumping on the program today, from the Sporting News, for Sam Yarnell, our Prince of Picks, who hangs out with me every day on the show, I'm Jason Page. We'll see you back here on Tuesday for the Sports Wrap.